So I think when we think about bullying, harassment and sexual harassment, equally we need to be curious about what it is that's being manifested in that behaviour. And it's usually helpful to think about it as a dynamic between people. So whether it's between two individuals or in a team in an organisation or indeed across an organisation. Certain behaviours can be symptomatic of something that's amiss. And I think that's a really useful starting point when you're thinking about the psychology of certain behaviours, is what is this a symptom of? What is it that people might be trying to tell us in their behaviour that we can really begin to listen to from the perspective of curiosity rather than shaming or blaming or jumping to conclusions very quickly. If we think about what the behaviour then might be connected to at an emotional level or at a psychological level, I think bullying and harassment in particular can be considered a kind of an overload of very challenging, almost like a constellation of different factors coming together that have overloaded our capacity to manage something from a healthy framework. One of the ways we might manage that stress is by being difficult or challenging to other people. So it's almost like we release our own excess onto somebody else and locate it in them without really wondering about what's going on for me. Actually, what is it that I might need?
The impact of bullying and harassment on an individual is manifold. I automatically think about what happens on a neuroscientific basis when we get stressed, and bullying is a very stressful experience and harassment is a very stressful experience. So what happens is our fight-flight response kicks in, our cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone, goes up to 100, the synapses all start firing. I think immediately of things like your sleep cycle becoming completely disturbed, unable to sleep because you're so anxious, so that real strong feeling of anxiety. A reliance on substances to soothe, to make things seem a little better or not as bad.
It affects the people in the workplace, but also individuals outside the workplace in their personal lives. For the wider team, even if they're not the ones being bullied or being sexually harassed, it has an impact on them as well. They're witness to it, and it really affects their behaviour, how they feel about probably themselves, and definitely about how they feel about their team and their workplace. It's about their productivity, their creativity, their collegiality, whether they're willing to work and help other people on their team anymore. It reduces all of that. It reduces their willingness to be in the workplace and be engaged with the workplace. So you may lose the devotion and the real work of the individual, but also of the other team members. And other bystanders to this behaviour are customers. Customers of and clients of the business see this. They see and they're affected by it, whether the rudeness and bullying is directed towards them or towards another staff member.
Yeah, so the impact is always negative of sexual harassment. And the impact can be extremely serious. And it is important to remember that the same behaviour addressed to one person may have a different impact than it would on another person. So having said that, if we're looking at the serious impacts, the damage that sexual harassment can do to a person, you're looking at the emotional harm that it can do, loss of confidence, stress, really nervousness, failure to be able to cope with their job. It can result in loss of appetite, loss of sleep. How many of us have had that experience of being so worried about something we can't sleep? There is the business that so many people are afraid to report, and it is terribly underreported. Why are they afraid to report? They will be seen as the disruptor, the person who has made it difficult for the organisation, and they then feel that that will impact not only on their job there, but perhaps on their reputation or their reference for another job. On a team, they may see that somebody is suffering sexual harassment. They may not want to draw attention to themselves in case it transfers to them. That means the person who is suffering the abuse can often feel totally alienated from the workplace. The workplace becomes hostile, defensive. unproductive to a great extent, and it is not a healthy culture.
Managers and leaders in the organisation should look at themselves. Everyone, in fact, should look at themselves and manage your own behaviour. I think the research shows that often people aren't aware that they're bullying. They aren't aware of how their actions and behaviours are coming across. So to be made aware of how it makes others feel, answering emails in a meeting or not, saying hi to people on the corridor, you may feel it's insignificant, but it could be being experienced as bullying, uncivil behaviour. And then let's look at the organisation. How can you manage the organisation to ensure that this behaviour doesn't happen? And there's obviously policies that can be put in place, and that's hugely important. That signals to your employees and everyone working there that you do take these matters seriously. They're not tolerated, they will be acted upon, and that goes to penalising bad behaviour. Also important to reward good behaviour. If you see collegiate actions that you like in your firm, to notice that, to have collegiality on your review form so that it's noted by your employees that this is something you as a business and a firm care about.
I think one of the most important things is to be aware of it and be aware that it exists and what it looks like in order to be able to address it if it does arise. And so things like the Dignity Matters survey from the Law Society are really important because they highlight what it is and what it looks like today. In terms of dealing with it and addressing it, I think it's really about being professional and being responsible when we come across these issues. And so complaints, when somebody wants to make a complaint, we should deal with that properly and head on. There shouldn't be a concern around repercussions if I make a complaint about something, or there shouldn't be a concern that I'll in some way be thought less of if I make a complaint. And when we make complaints, they should be properly dealt with and addressed. We're in the business of solving problems. We solve problems for our clients all the time, and so we should be willing and prepared to do that for each other as well. So there's a great quote actually when it comes to items like dignity in the workplace, and it's, when those around you are dedicated to ethical conduct, that's contagious, and so is the reverse. And I think that quote really captures the effect that we have as individuals on the organisation that we work in. When people see negative behaviours being rewarded, somebody gets promoted, or negative behaviours being overlooked, it becomes acceptable, and it becomes something that that younger person is going to try and imitate and work towards because they see it being rewarded or they see it being overlooked. When we treat complaints the same and we treat the people involved the same, and that consistency is there, it makes it a safe environment to deal with those issues.
How do we create a culture of respect? I think that that question really, I suppose, demands and requires us to start thinking about how do we define and how do firms define and talk about and agree that in this firm and in this place of work, what do we say respect is? So I think it's really important that firms begin to, and not just begin to, do dialogue and define for themselves what respect is, and then really communicate that to the firm, that this is what we have decided. These are the behaviours, the principles, this is what we're going to live to. And that is communicated by the leaders, by senior leaders, to every level in a firm, including everybody, that this is what we stand for. And also this is what we expect when we have defined it, communicate it, and then live it. And if there are behaviours or experiences that aren't, that they are held to account. There needs to be methods and points of access which are safe and within which people can really voice their experience, and the experience is acknowledged and listened to.
What's going to be really important is that leadership take ownership of a concept which is no tolerance at all of sexual violence. That's going to be really important. From that will flow training, awareness raising, meetings with managers, helping people to update no harassment policies. All of that flows from a leadership saying we want to be a company, an environment where sexual harassment does not exist.